Alright, I've been kind of wanting to make a video about this for a while. These are flat earth references in old newspapers from the late 1800s and early 1900s. You can see this. Just want to show you some things. It's kind of interesting. A lot of it. It's pretty much the same arguments that people are having today. Some of it religious, some of it uh, not religious. But this is a time when they were trying to push Darwinism and all, and evolution, and people were fighting against it back then because they didn't believe it. Just same as today, people don't believe it. Evolution's a crock, um, but they needed the globe Earth to for evolution to be plausible. But here's let's see, this is from. I've got probably 150 of these newspaper articles. Um, some of you might have seen some of these. Maybe not. There's too many to go through. I'm going to do maybe about 10 of them. Try not to make this video too long, but maybe I'll do a series on this if people want to see it. So I downloaded a huge file about 3 years ago with all these articles in it, and I just never got around to making a video about it. Some of the newspapers is hard to see. Some of them just might have just the words "flat Earth" in one article, but they don't really talk about it much. So I just picked out a few of these ones that actually have some content. Like this one here, this is a preacher, Canadian preacher, lectures in New York, and he believes in a square flat earth. And he's coming from a biblical perspective. I have no reason to doubt. He said that we are dwelling on a four-cornered earth. He talks about the book of John. He speaks of angels standing at the four corners of the earth. How do scientific men have better knowledge than the scriptures? Then he just goes on. This article goes on. But then right over here, right next to it, you have an article about the theory of the moon and tides, and that the moon broke off of the earth and all this stuff, and they have the distance to the moon, 240,000 miles. Now, that's the same distance they say it is today, 238,000, that range. But how would they know that in the 1800s, in 1882? It was just a theory. And that's what, they call this a theory when they're describing this moon stuff. So, but they had to form NASA and fake the moon landings, and just so they could say, oh, they were right back in the 1800s with their theories about how far away the moon was, and tides and stuff. I'm not going to go through all of this. Move on to the next one. And a lot of people have seen this one. This is from April of 1900. It says, the article says the earth is round and may be thrown into prison. And this is about a professor who was trying to prosecute another professor for teaching that the earth is a sphere. It says, it seems that the schools of Portsmouth have been teaching the damnable and heretical doctrine that the earth is a sphere. Sir John's attention had been called to this dissemination of seditious and treasonable doctrine, but has refused to correct the abuse. Ebenezer and his friend know, of course, that the earth is flat as a pancake. They have been patient with Sir John, and day after day have allowed the false teaching regarding the shape of the earth to go on, but can stand it no longer. They say to see their children corrupted with this most heretical doctrine, as the complaints call it in this protest. Sir John Gorst has many political enemies, and even his political friends do not always agree with him. But the depth of his depravity was not known until he was unmasked by Mr. Ebenezer Breach and his friends. Goes on. Read every word of it. They want to. Says, after having stamped out the dastardly doctrine in the schools of Southampton, the committee announced they will next go up to London and bring the London School Board before the courts. being well devised and informed that the same doctrine regarding the shape of the earth is also taught in the London schools. It's from 1904. A Boston man objecting to school teachings is fined. Boston, Massachusetts, May 27th. James Broom of 56 West Newton Street. And public school teachers have several matters of difference, prominent among which is the matter of the shape of the earth. The generally accepted theory of the teachers that the earth is round is not endorsed by Broom. Okay, that's just the generally accepted theory. So they even taught us a theory back then. Hales that the earth is flat and is a custom of a Sunday to expand his belief. Broom and his son. Okay, so his son was a student at the school, and his dad told him theirs was flat. So I guess they had a problem with the school, and so his son was missing class, and they fined him $10 for his son missing class. Okay, this is a decent one. The flat earth theory. Lady Blunt. I've seen some videos of somebody talking about Lady Blunt. The well-known advocate of the flat earth theory has thrown down the gauntlet to the astronomers. In the Christmas number of Home Chat, she characterizes the globular hypothesis as the greatest myth of science and complains that orthodox astronomers do not treat their opponents fairly and will not meet their arguments. Sounds like today. One great stock argument on which our opponents rely, says Lady Blunt, is of course that ships at sea disappear from view. Remarkable experiments have been made, ships having been clearly seen with powerful telescopes at distances of 30 to 40 miles. From Holyhead to Kingstown Harbor is 60 miles, and halfway between the lighthouse at the latter place has been observed through a telescope, whereas the top should have been 600 feet below the level of the horizon if there were anything in the globular theory. Reality constitutes the writer. Our opponents have not a single conclusive argument to offer in support of the theories which is regarded as the height of impertinence for anyone to call into question. So yeah, even back then they were doing the long distance observations with telescopes and boats and lighthouses. So let's go to the next one. Okay, this is talking about the North Pole. It says the ground or sea at the North Pole will appear the same, therefore, as they would anywhere else under the same conditions of temperature and the like. In other words, one would not know himself to be at the pole except by scientific observation of the heavens, or by keeping a record of his journey thither. Let's see. It talks about the poles are flat in this article, and this is from 1909. And they're talking about the magnetic and the geographical poles. But they talk about, I guess this is Captain Cook, his journey to the North Pole. So it's some interesting reading. I'm going to go through all this. But they kind of talk about it like there's land at the North Pole. But you know, if you look at Google Earth today, there is no land at the North Pole. They just show water. Let's go to the next one. Let's see, this is from 1912. This is actually somebody trying to go against the Bible, but using the Bible. It says 10th century religion. Mrs. Mary L. Keyes, Steelville, I guess Montana. In the Commoner recently was an article entitled 10th Century Religion by E.A. Fitch of Wilmington, Vermont. As I think this article not just fair to neither the Bible nor Mr. Bryan, I beg a little space in the Commoner. In this article by Mr. Fitch, he says that the discoveries in modern science, especially that of evolution and kindred sciences, have disproved and discredited the Book of Books in many important particulars. So, you know, this is, you know, America was founded on religion, and people were fighting against it way back then. You know, this goes on to say that the Bible describes evolution, which is crazy. But it says, this is the book of generations of Adam in the day of God, made him in the likeness of God, male and female created he them, and called their name Adam in the day when they were created. This process of changing Adam into man took 12 periods called generations, or 1856 years, for Noah was the first man found righteous before God and perfect in his generation. Noah walked with God. Was this not the process of evolution? I mean, that's a stretch, really. But this is the propaganda that was going on back in the 1800s. I mean, the same kind of stuff goes on today. It's all propaganda coming from the media. It's from 1912, like I said. All right. Let's go to this next one, 1920. This is talking about the first to teach philosophy. I was talking about first school of philosophy was established in Asia Minor by Thales, one of the wise men, and was quite a remarkable institution, exerting an influence for more than a century. Many of the subjects taught in his school, such as astronomy, geometry, and geography, showed the influence of Egypt and Phoenicia, but the philosophy was probably an original product, for while some of the sciences were somewhat advanced, the philosophy was apparently at first attempt at the explanation of the origin of the world. It originated a movement which culminated more than a century later in the idealism of Plato. We may perhaps understand something of the attitude of the common people towards Thales' school of philosophy from the story of the old woman who laughed when her master fell backward into a ditch after gazing too long at the stars. The old woman not only laughed, but she is said to have called after him, "If you cannot see what is under your feet, how can you understand what is in heaven?" The geography and astronomy taught in this school were very primitive. The earth was flat. The sun circled around it horizontally, being concealed at night by high hills. One writer of the time describes the world in the following potential way: God makes a mantle, large and fair, and embroiders it on earth and ocean's dwellings. So, the idea that people always taught the earth was a globe, for thousands of years. I mean, that's just all propaganda. Okay, this is I think this article is actually trying to make this guy out to look like a crackpot, which the media does to flat earthers anyway, but this is from 1921. Go to the top here so you can see the date. December 24th, 1921. So this is Christmas Eve, and this is a guy. There's a few articles in some of these papers about this. Voliva, I don't know how you pronounce that. Says it will be a gloomy Christmas in Zion City, the peculiar community north of Chicago, presided over and dominated absolutely by Wilbur Glenn Voliva, General Overseer. Voliva has decreed that there is no Santa Claus and that there shall be no exploiting of silly myths for the declination of the superior children of Zion. Claus, according to Voliva, belongs to the limbo of forgotten things, and old Kris Kringle is as great a fraud as the people who contend that the world is round. And this is another article about the same guy. This is also from 1921. I was talking about this guy at the school in Zion, Illinois, teaching flat earth to his students. So I guess that's about all I got for this one. I might make a few more of these and go in a little more depth on some of these articles. It's kind of hard to I don't want to be here for hours and hours going through all these articles, but if y'all find this interesting, oh wait, I got another one actually, 1937. Let's see. It's about the same guy again, Boliva. And this he's talking about flights over the poles. He said the pole is just it's just a point fixed by the North Star. It's nothing special. A cricket can hop over it. Blah blah. But I guess some Russian flyers flew over the North Pole, but he said, but had the Russians claimed to fly via the South Pole, that would be different. So he's just saying they're flying over the North Pole works on a flat Earth. He indicated he might even suspect trickery. There isn't any South Pole, he said. Why should there be? There is no need of it. But even if there was, I'm still right. You might fly south for a while, but sooner or later you'd have to turn east or west. You might think it was south, but it wouldn't be. It would be impossible. So, same arguments today, and still there's no solid proof that anybody's ever flown over the South Pole. It's a no-fly zone. You can't fly there. But, this guy in 1937 was saying, fly over the South Pole to prove it, but they can't do it. They haven't, and they won't. I mean, there's the 2 flights they say he did, but looking at the map, they just flew to Antarctica and turned around and came back north. They didn't fly around the bottom of the globe because it's impossible. Anyway, it's been going for about 19 minutes, so if y'all find this interesting, and I might go through some more of these articles. So this is just 10 of them. I've got at least 150. Anyway, that's all I got for this one. Thanks for watching.